Hey, it's 11:40, The Bet and Audacy Sports closing out the week strong. Of course, the NFL has invaded Las Vegas once again. It is Pro Bowl week, and a man who has survived multiple days so far here in Las Vegas covering everything Pro Bowl for the NFL Network is NFL national reporter Cameron Wolfe, who joins us first and foremost, excuse me, Cameron, thank you for joining us. And I know it's your first time on the show. And we really like to get to know our guests before we get into the sports and everything. And I noticed on your Twitter bio that you're from Mississippi. So my first question,
Yes,
Cameron,
sir.
is Big Crit not the most underrated rapper of all time?
Absolutely. Big Chris actually my favorite rapper. So I might make an argument that he's one of the best rappers of all time. But I'm a little biased there. So definitely I would give him most underrated. People sleep on the South, but I'm a big Southern rap guy. Big Crit, top of the list.
No, 100%. I just need to make sure. I was like, he's from Mississippi. I need to ask him about Crit for sure. And speaking on that, speaking
For
on
sure.
music, on the music tip, because of course, Super Bowl next week, Rihanna at the halftime show. Do you think Eminem's going to appear at the halftime show, which would make him the first artist ever to be a special guest in two Super Bowl halftime shows and back to back as well?
Oh, I don't know. That would be fun, right? There's a lot of different cameo options there. Eminem, Rihanna's tight with Drake. Does Drake show up? I don't know. Rihanna's a big headliner in her own self, so even if there's no guests, I think we'll be fine. But she has a deep crew, so maybe Eminem, maybe Drake. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. And you had the opportunity last night to talk to one of the most hated and loved Raiders here currently on the roster. Of course, talking about Derek Carr for the Pro Bowl games at Raiders headquarters in Henderson. With Derek Carr being around, it kind of feels like an ex moving out of someone's house and kind of taking their stuff as they're getting out of there. I just want to know before we get into the conversation that you had with him, what was the vibe and energy like in headquarters? Because, technically he's still a part of this Raiders roster for at least the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, when he first showed up, there's obviously the irony of him being here after saying his goodbye, right? But I tell you what, he treated it with light spirit. Like he wasn't angry. He was making a lot of jokes about it. The first day that I saw him, it was during a rehearsal, and he made a joke about knowing all the entrances and exits, of knowing where the snacks are, so he can get extra snacks to all his Pro Bowl buddies. He was saying hi and giving hugs to a lot of employees here, and so he said it's a different vibe for sure. Maybe the X comparison's a good one, but he's handled it pretty well. So not a lot of like bad spirits from Derek Carr from what I've seen. But the crowd definitely throughout the day was a lot of mixed reactions based on what Derek Carr was doing out there.
And you had the chance to speak with him on air on NFL Network for about 7 minutes. First, I thought it was hilarious. He got his Rob Lowe on with the red NFL logo hat. But for you, what were your big takeaways from the conversation with him?
Yeah, no, I think the big thing talking with Derek was just him being clear once again that he's moved on from the Raiders, even though he's still physically a Raider. He made clear to me that he has his no trade clause, and he feels like it gives him control to pick his new team. And so he noted that February 15th date where his contract becomes guaranteed, and he seemed pretty clear that he was going to have a lot of control and options on what he does next. So I think you're looking at a situation with Derek Carr where it's going to be a little bit of a stare down over the next 2 weeks with the team, with the player. Obviously, they have to make some decisions on what the trade options look like. And right now, we're just waiting to see if ultimately he is traded, or maybe more likely if he gets released and gets to choose his own team. So some of the conversation was about that. Some of the conversation was just about how I asked him if he wanted to share his side of how things went with the Raiders. And he said, look, you're a human, and so you always want to be able to share how you're feeling and what the true story is. But he said it wasn't going to fix anything. He said, hey, me telling my side of the story isn't going to fix anything, so I'm just going to move on and keep loving people and give everything I have to my next city. And so he kind of took the high road, kind of classy in the way he went out in that respect. But he seemed very thankful for his time here in Vegas and Oakland, but he seemed really content that it's over. And it didn't seem like there was any turning back on, returning to the Raiders. And it didn't seem like there was any turning back on moving back his trade deadline. I mean, moving back his contract guarantee date or waiving his no trade deadline. So he's putting the onus on the Raiders to make a move so that everybody can move forward.
And with the people that you talk to and getting to talk to Derek himself, I want to ask you, what do you think is the likelihood at this point that he actually ends up getting traded as opposed to getting cut on February 14th?
Yeah, I think the big thing there is his salary, right? He's making over $40 million in guarantees for 2023 and 2024 partial salary there. So you're going to have a team that's willing and wanting to not only pay that money, but give up capital as well. And so I think that's the challenge here. I think Derek Carr's no trade clause is also a challenge here because he can play hardball. He could simply say, hey, I'm not accepting a trade anyway. And ultimately, the Raiders would have to release him if they didn't want to be stuck with his guarantees. And so I think that I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I do think that these next 2 weeks, we'll see something significant news-wise in regards to Derek Carr. I don't think that it's going to be quiet. I think we'll see the Raiders have to make some sort of move, whether trade or release by that date.
And before we get into some of these other quarterbacks around the league and the Super Bowl as well, last question I want to ask you in particular with Derek Carr and your time that you spent with him here for his return, quote unquote, to the Raiders, which is just strange to even say. But do you kind of get the sense that whatever team gets Derek Carr next season is going to end up getting a player that is very, very motivated because of how bad and how much of a disaster this season was with the Raiders?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one example of that is we were at the Pro Bowl and the rehearsals, and he came out there firing, like hitting literally every target in practice, and he did no warm-up. And then yesterday during the skill challenge, he won it. And so, I asked him about that yesterday. He said he's been training 5:30 a.m. every single day with one of his good buddies during the offseason because he wants to give everything to his new team. And he told me that really the last month and definitely the last season has reignited his flame and wanting to compete and win at the top of the game. And so I do think you're going to see a refocused, a remotivated Derek Carr. And so what that means on the field, I'm not sure, but it does seem like that he's happier than I've seen him in a while and also more motivated to prove people that he could still be a team's true quarterback for the foreseeable future.
And, obviously Raider Nation had their eyes set, I should say, on Tom Brady, who retired and kind of has blown up not only the Raiders, but possibly the Niners, the Dolphins, a whole bunch of teams' plans for quarterback in this free agency. I just want to kind of get your reaction to Tom finally calling it quits.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking with some of Pro Bowl stars about Tom Brady all week, and there's been a mix. There's been people who've been sad to see what they call the GOAT, the greatest player of all time, gone. There's other guys, like I talked to Tyreek Hill, who said, I'm convinced he's not done. And, there's sort of like a mixed bag here because we saw him retire and unretire last year. So he said he's done for good, but there's some people who are skeptical for sure. And I was talking to a couple of younger guys, Micah Parsons and Sauce Gardner. Sauce has never played Tom before, and he said he wanted Tom Brady to unretire so that he could get an interception off of him because he's been on his bucket list for years. I don't think that's going to happen. And Micah Parsons pleaded to me to get Tom Brady to sign his jersey because he had the last sack of Tom Brady, and he really needed it up on his helmet. So a lot of different perspectives on Tom Brady's retirement, but I think overall everybody's happy for him, but also curious if he'll stay true to the retirement this time.
Adrian Brady in theaters now, by the way. They're not paying me to say that. In fact, I don't even know why I said that. I also find it very curious that you mentioned that the one Dolphins player on the Pro Bowl is saying that he's not retiring. I'll let people do what they want with that information. But not only Tom Brady with some news, but of course it's the offseason. It's been happening the past couple off seasons. Aaron Rodgers and where he ends up. I know you stay in Miami, bringing up the Dolphins again. Raiders and Devontae Adams with that connection, and Devontae kind of flirting with it on the IG story. Where do you see Aaron Rodgers ending up?
Yeah, that's the question of the offseason for me. Like last year was Deshaun. This year I think it'll be Aaron Rodgers. It's funny, I saw he did the golf tournament a couple of days ago, and they asked him, and he said not San Fran. Because San Fran would be my first thought of what makes the most sense for him. Going out west where I think he would prefer to be, and a team that's, a quarterback away essentially. If it's not him, maybe it's here in Las Vegas. That's a team that makes sense if they move on from Derek Carr and need to get another quarterback as well. So for me, you got to look at game-ready situations for Aaron Rodgers. I do not think it'll be Miami. What I understand, they are committing to Tua for at least this next year, and I don't see them going and getting a big veteran quarterback. But, that's subject to change if things change this year. But as far as Aaron Rodgers in 2023, I'd imagine that, you look at some of the most competitive teams, the teams that are maybe one player, maybe one quarterback away, where you start with a guy like him.
Cameron Wolfe joining us, NFL national reporter for NFL Network, here throughout the week, covering everything Pro Bowl here in Las Vegas. And before we let you go, let me set the stage for the Super Bowl before I ask you the question. When I look at Patrick Mahomes, I think it's his best season ever, considering losing Tyreek, some of the injuries some of the wide receivers have had. When I look at the Eagles, to be honest, this might be the best defensive team since the 2002 Buccaneers with how amazing this defense has played. No disrespect to the Legion of Boom. So I say all of that to ask you, a week away from the Super Bowl, rather, who do you have winning it?
Give me Philly. I think they have been the best team all year. I think a lot of these games are going to be won in the trenches. To me, they have the best offensive line in football. Their defensive line has more sacks than any other team by 15, and they have a young quarterback who I think has shown that he can step up when needed in key moments. And so I love Patrick Mahomes. I think that he is not only the best quarterback in the league, the best quarterback that we've seen in some time, but ultimately I think the differences in the roster are going to be why Philly wins the game. I think they're going to impose their will on the Chiefs defensive line. With their offensive line, it's going to allow them to win a lot of those one-on-one matchups with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the other end. And then on the other side of the ball, I just think that they're going to be getting after Patrick Mahomes. We're going to truly see if that ankle is 100% or not because of that pass rush for the Eagles. So give me the Eagles in a very, very close one to win the Super Bowl.
There it is, Cameron Wolfe. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, Cameron Wolfe with an E at the end. Cam, enjoy your stay in Vegas, and we'll see you at the Pro Bowl, my friend.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate you.